So what I do is find a place where the kick is almost playing on its own, but of course there's a lot of things going on, including a master chain and whatever, so I really need to edit some things. But let's see if we can find a place where the kick is almost playing on its own. So let's see the drop. Oh, it's not the drop. Here we go. Okay, let's see if we can just grab this kick out of the track, because I love the sound of it. I need to make this a little bit bigger. Well, let's take that one. It's almost here, so I can get rid of the rest of the track. So I think it starts here. Well, no, I'm getting rid of the transient here. That's it. So then what I do is copy this 3 times. And this is just a basic trick to get you started within seconds after you start your production. Let me make it a little bit shorter so you can see everything that I'm doing here. Sometimes it's also good to just take a kick from a Vengeance pack or whatever, but I think this is more inspiring because you already know that the kick is good. The only thing is you just need it soloed. So what I do, I take it in 3 parts, and if you look at this waveform, you see the first part until here. This is more or less the first transient. Then what comes after it, more or less, will be the part which is pumping your stomach. And the last part, the tail, is the part that's the sub. So what I'm going to do is to cut these 3 things after the first transient, after the knock in your stomach, and for the sub. Well, oh, where am I? Here we go. The first track I use for the click. The second part I use for the stomach part, and the last one is for the sub. So, if I'm a bit lucky today, sometimes it just needs a little bit more time. I still have the same sound, you don't hear any clicks or whatever, and then the process starts. The only thing that I'm doing with the sub part is take away all the higher frequencies until you don't hear any information from the track anymore. So let's say this works. Now still there's a lot of noise and stuff going on, but that's going to be on this part. So also on this part I'm going to get rid of the higher frequencies until I only hear the stomach part. And the first thing, most of these tracks or producers use a lot of sidechains, so more or less the first half of a second is already isolated. So sometimes I don't need to process the first click because you don't hear any information from the track. So what happens if I play these together? Here we have a clean kick. It might sound a little bit too long, but at least we have a starting point for a kick, which obviously in the end will be totally different because you're gonna add your own stuff, your own synthesizers and processing to it. So it's not, I think it's not so wrong to just steal a kick like that and to have that as a starting point. Well, what I did to just skip some time, I already have that here. And what we have here, and what you hear, is that it's a very long kick. Most probably, it's not only his kick that I've sampled, but only his bass. So, like this, I am really stuck to his key, which is E in this case. So what I want to do now is see if I can have this one working with a bass sound. So I have programmed this one, which is playing E. It's just a simple bass coming from the Nexus, nothing special, but just to give you this example. What I want to do now is use the LFO tool which I think is a great tool, to see if we can use the LFO tool, or at least a sidechain plugin, to define the length of the kick, so it's not fighting with your bass. So what I'm doing is that I'm going to put that LFO tool on the kick, which is not a very regular thing to do, but for this trick it works really great. And normally this is the length of the kick. And normally a sidechain works like ducking the signal on the kick and then coming up, like this. This is the way you are using it for bass. Now the kick is gone. But you can, on this LFO tool, you can invert the value of the way it's working. So here you have where my mouse is the volume. If I'm going under 0, I'm going to have the working situation of the sidechain plugin the other way around. The benefit of this is that I can exactly place or exactly create space for my bass, because I want to have it right after the kick, which is happening a lot in dance. So despite of the length of the kick or whatever EQing is going on, which makes the kick resonate. So this is the reason why I'm going to work with an LFO tool instead of cutting the waveform. But because if you cut the waveform, you also know how long the kick is. But if you are boosting, let's say 48 Hertz, the EQ, which is on the kick, is also resonating a little bit. I can give a little example of that. Like this, which is 47 Hertz, the sub-frequency that you are hearing is not coming from the waveform, it's inside the EQ. So if you would have cut the waveform, and this still is going on, that sub-frequency is going underneath your basses. So using the sidechain could even help if you are having such resonations going on in your kick EQ to kill them. Well, this is far too long, but you would never EQ it like this. Like this, you can just cut it away and only have the sub or the kick playing and make it completely silent, so the bass is going to be soloed as well. Well, like this, I know that there's space for my bass, so most probably I can just put it on without any problem. Like this, there is space for both, and that's it. And this is a way that I always work, because I really need, in terms of time, that the kick is playing here and that there's space for the bass, so they both can have their 100% of energy in this master, because that's in the end what you're looking for.